Right. Hello, everybody. Well, both of you.
Bit thin today, Mike.
Yeah, that's okay. The sunshine gets people out in the gardens and things, I think, but that's fine. We're here. That's what's important. So, just giving yourself plenty of time, and just a very simple body scan, just starting with your feet. And as you come to each part of the body, just along with the body scan, just a little check of your posture. So are your feet in the right place? Are they pointing forwards and so on? Can you feel your weight in your feet? Just letting your attention come up through your body, calves, knees, the thighs, hips. Hips dropping back, soften your knees. Turning in that central part of your body, where both the front but also the back, where your spine meets your pelvis. Turning on a sort of central axis. And just aware as you let your attention scan up through your body, muscles of the lower belly, sides, lower back, around by your kidneys. And then more towards your solar plexus, and again just feeling the interaction of the muscles in that area. Continue up to the upper part of the torso, so ribs, shoulder blades, shoulders themselves. Just feeling the weight of your arms, and how it feels as they swing round, very free, loose movement at the start. Loosen your fingers, where the space is between your fingers and your forefinger and thumb. Head nicely poised on, resting on top of your shoulders. Just let your jaw drop a little bit, your lips part. You can have your eyes open or closed. I tend to move between the two. Just notice any expression that you're holding on your face. And then just completing this little sort of scan with a change of image, change of idea about how you're moving, by just imagining that you're in water up to about shoulder height, so that rather than your arms having this loose feeling, they're still quite soft, but they're actually being systematically pulled by your body. So you're drawing your hands around as though through water. Notice any change in areas like your elbows, your fingers. Breathing nice and soft, just letting your body breathe at its own rhythm, its own pace. And then raising your arms a little, no higher than shoulder height. And notice that my elbows are hanging down. So it's almost like there's a kind of loop, a cord from the ceiling, and it's wrapped around my wrist, just supporting the weight of my arms so that my elbows can drop. And then letting your hands drop down. So just keeping that picture that comes from the simple body scan, just beginning to rock your weight forwards and backwards. Try not to let your heels and your toes come off the ground. And again, as though you're in water, so you need a little bit of effort, or at least your body needs to make an effort. If you try and do it consciously, it probably won't work. Just allowing yourself to develop this image of being in water and giving time for your body to respond to that. And imagine the contrast between front and back. So well, if you're going forwards in the water, the pressure of the water will be against the front of your body. And then to go back, the pressure of the water will be against the back. So whatever effort your body makes to move you requires a sort of distinction really between front and back. So it's a way of just becoming a little bit more aware of internal movement and change within your body. And coming to rest where you find yourself in a point of equilibrium, so held in this position, because any tendency to go forwards is neutralized by pull backwards and vice versa. And see if you can just bring your weight to a point just behind the ball of each foot and encourage this dropping back in your hips, feeling of your pelvis just beginning to hang. So we want to try and get away from a kind of unconscious idea that we often have, that we have to somehow do something extra to simply remain upright, to strain or to stiffen up. And then sitting back a little bit more, letting your hips drop back a little bit more and pushing up. Sit back. Now, as you do this, place one hand on your belly, one hand just here, just on the small of your back. Doesn't matter which way around. But just so that as you sink up and down, you can feel once again that interaction of different muscles and different parts of the body. The pelvis will tuck under a little bit, but somehow the muscles that work opposite each other just naturally maintain a sense of equilibrium. One set of muscles sort of loosens, extends, another will contract. And although they're antagonistic to each other in that sense, at the moment, we're not trying to lift weights or anything like that. So we're maintaining that sense of equilibrium as we move. So you're moving within certain boundaries. If you go down too far, you'll find some muscles will have to start kind of really tightening, stiffening up. Now bring your hands around as though you're cradling a ball. Just extend that idea up through again, belly and waist, into your solar plexus and the upper part of your chest, your arms. So as though that picture of the body that we've developed just suddenly becomes a moving picture, but without losing any of its essential qualities. Expanding and contracting with a nice steady rhythm once again. You see if it suits you to work with your breathing, then see if your breath finds a way of matching that rhythm. The obvious one would be that when you push up, you breathe in, when you sink down and contract, you breathe out. But that might be the wrong cycle for you. You might do it the other way around, or you might find, for instance, that the in-breath becomes a little bit longer, shorter for the out-breath, or maybe even a kind of double cycle of breathing or something. So there's all sorts of ways. It's important to feel comfortable and that whatever way you're breathing doesn't create a tightening in your body, but helps to maintain this sense of a harmonious movement within your body. Then the wild goose, so like a bird in flight, as always, using whatever images suit you well. Then changing again to parting the clouds, your hands dropping all the way down, crossing in front of your belly. You push up, your elbows get drawn out, drawing your fingers apart, and then down again. Yeah. Your hands drop down, still aware of the weight of them as they hang from your shoulders, pushing up like you're plucking an apple from a tree. So dragon plucks the stars from the sky. And again, if I come a bit closer, you won't be able to see my feet, but as I push up, notice the elbow goes out, drawing your fingers up now, elbow dropping down. And then when he's dropped down, the first thing that you feel is that sense of pulling through your elbow. And again, pushing up, drawing down. So gradually that picture of the body becomes more detailed. We become aware of currents of movement. So your mind, your awareness, focus through your feet, through the middle of your body, and kind of anchored there. So it's almost like you can look out from the center of your body, from the ground, up from the ground, and just observe the movements, like you might sit next to the river or the sea, just watch the play of currents in the water. Do one more on each side. And then pushing up, hands slightly in front of the body, no higher than a small distance above your head, coming down, back to beside your hips. Lifting again, but this time your elbows drop a lot more, so your hands end up pushing out sideways, and you turn just a little bit. Turn back, draw your hands back to your hips. Same thing in the other direction, and then back. And push out to the side. Try and make sure that when you do the turning, it comes from that central part of the body, and that you're not twisting your spine or your shoulders around, creating again tightening if that happens. So here, imagine you've got a spotlight in your neighbor, and as you push your hands out, you're just turning to shine the light towards the corner, and then back to the front, and then in the other direction, and back, and then facing forwards. Easy and gently. Weight slightly forwards, hips dropping back with that bit of the pelvis hanging down, and it's really that will create the space for that turning I've just been talking about. So you shouldn't have to fight for that. You should feel very loose, like the wheel of a bicycle just spinning around without any resistance. Now change again, let your hands drop down, drawing your fingers back, press down gently through the heel of your palm so your hand pushes away from your body and then swings up and down. So try not to think of lifting your hand. Your arm will naturally circle because it's attached to your shoulder at one end. So we really just want to concentrate on an expansion on this side of the body, pushing your arm away. Again, just observing how your arm swings up. And then after you've done that, if it's comfortable, you can add your little turn once again in the center of your body. And now change sides. And then again, if it's comfortable, add in the turn. Now, let your arms drop down and just tilt your pelvis forwards and backwards a few times. Notice what that does to your shoulders and your head, maintaining this line here. Very simple movement, but it's quite difficult to do. You want your pelvis to sort of swing on your hips. On the back, you see, hips go back. And then this time, as you do that tilting movement, sink down a little bit more. And then imagine somebody pushing on the tail of your spine and just gently pressing so that your head comes up. You sit back into your hips and push up. So 3 stages, 1, and then 2. Being very careful of your knees and your hip and your back, and then 3. So we go down on 1, we stay down on 2 as we allow our pelvis to level off, and then on 3 we push up. And then this time, as you push up, just let your arms begin to follow the movement. The exercise is called rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. Very important that you remain aware of what's happening up your back and into your neck, so that you know if you're pulling, straining on that part of the body, it's your hips dropping back, your pelvis hanging down, that gently brings you to the upright position. Stabilizes you, not a strain in the upper part of your body. Then once again, aware of your hips and your waist, and aware of this spot where the spine meets the pelvis, and turning from side to side. So if I put my hand on that spot, you'll see it moving. You do that with your hands in front of you. Imagine your hands are resting on a table or on a ball. And then this time you turn, and just as you did with the previous exercise, you let your hips go back, and that slides your hands forwards. And then you go in the other direction. This is polishing the table. One more time in each direction. And then rest. Once again, this time as you just stand quietly, Just a gentle scan from your feet up through your legs to your knees, your hips, belly, solar plexus and chest. And your arms, the weight of your arms hanging down. Head just resting on top of the shoulders. Check out. So, let me just. Okay, so with that same awareness, that same sense of this picture of the body, try and maintain that all the way through the exercise as a kind of background thing, so that there's a part of your awareness constantly kind of monitoring, observing. And as I've said a few times recently, part of the process, I think, of developing these exercises is what, and you have to know the exercise, you have to be comfortable with the exercise, but it's really just trying to, how can I put it, trying to cultivate the movement, working out how your body's moving, and from that, you may want to make a decision. I want to do it this way, not this way, but not imposing something on the body. So we kind of nurture the movements. Now, just back to sinking up and down. And this time, go up and go over, drop down a little bit into your left leg, and then push up, coming up in a kind of almost like a kind of semicircle down into your right leg. I'm moving a little bit too far because actually it's only about 60% of the weight. You'd hardly see it if I did it how it's meant to be done. You see, very difficult for you to see the movement. So trouble is, when I go out there, you can begin to see my hips are going out of line. But I'm trying to sort of do it so that you can see. I'm going to bring in the turning in the center. So as you go across into your right leg, you turn to the left. Coming up, now straining in your hips and your knees, and drop into your left leg and you turn to the right. We're going into the exercise bear play, people who know it. And so the hips are making this sort of circular pattern here. If you put your hands on your hips, then you'll feel that more. Again, I'm exaggerating. You look from the side, you can see. Now, if you know bear play, you'll recognize that the hands are almost in the position that we need them to be to finish each stage of the movement. So now as you bring the arms more into the movement, recognize you don't actually have to do that much with them. There's an expansion that pushes your right hand up, and then you press down, and then back the other way. So this is bear play. Notice that as I sink down, my body turns one way, but my fingers are still pointing forwards. So there's a bit of a kind of opening here, because the hands are going straight ahead, but my body's turning. So just that little bit of opening in the chest, where your arm meets your chest. Feel the movement in your spine and your back. Let's do one more on each side. So then, as you come across this time, you turn, as we know, but now turn the opposite way. Draw your hand out, turn your hand palm up, and this time push into the left leg, your right hand coming up as though you're hitting a ball in front of the shoulder. This time your fingers will point in the same direction that your torso is facing. So your hands come straight out from your shoulders. And from the back, I exaggerate, as I come around, I just let my heel come up so I can get around that a little bit further. A strong movement coming from your feet. Your arm gently extending, but not locking. One more time on each side. And we're going to change to cow gazes at the moon. Same movement in your feet and your hips and your weight. Just spread your arms out just a little bit and then just let them swing up together as though they're just holding onto a big ball or something like that. And with this one in particular, eyes are open and you look between your hands, hence the gazing at the moon. And at the moment, what I'm doing is I'm turning towards the front corner on each occasion. But what you could do is, be careful of your back. If you can sink down a bit more, relax a bit more, you may be able to turn just a little bit further. One more time. Now this time, keep your feet fixed to the floor, bring your hands over and then down on a diagonal, coming up and down towards the opposite diagonal. So your hands extend out and then palms facing the direction of the movement, come down, almost brushing against your hip, like a sideways figure of 8 or an infinity sign. And your body expanding and contracting. Expanding and contracting. One more to each side. We'll come back to this the bow stance. Just leave it here for now, and then have your right foot forwards, transferring your weight. So hip width across your feet. So I've not stepped there, I've stepped here, so check that you've still got that space enough between your legs to get a sense of your torso dropping down between your hips. The length of your step, again, yeah, there you go. So you can see that my rear toes are behind my front heel. And roughly speaking, it's about the same in length as it is in width. Not too long a step, but this is too short. What will happen is you'll very quickly start to strain because you'll be going off your foot. Or a very common problem is this, that your knee overextends when your stance is too short. Eventually you do learn to maintain that sense of rooting down, your torso dropping down in different stances, but this is the stance where we really learn how that feels. And then just raising your toes. So once again, and then your heel, you're observing, you know, how your body responds to this stance, and it helps you to generate a feeling of being able to maintain your root while you're transferring your weight. Once you've got that feeling, that inner awareness, then you can begin to apply it in different circumstances, in different stances. But it's always worthwhile coming back to this stance just to refresh that memory, because that memory of the feeling, that intuitive sense of what is going on, is what will stay with you out of the class and in other exercises. And then stepping in. So as well as what we might think of external images, you know, the wild goose plucking the apple from the tree, moving in water and so on and so forth, we begin to just generate a series of what we might think of as internal images, images that come directly from our experience of the exercise, feelings, sensations, so on and so forth, that again we can use to develop the movement. And then on the other side, and again, just transferring your weight. Raising your toes and your heel. And then stepping in. And step through. Maintaining that wider step. Notice how as I step forwards, my foot comes in, out, the heel goes down. So I'll just trace the circle with my foot. And then same idea going backwards. When I step back, it's the ball of my foot that goes down first. You're making sure you maintain your hip width. Otherwise, you start to feel as though you're trying to do this on a high, high wire or something like that, and then just shake out. So many of the things that we do start to become quite intuitive. The step in, the sinking of the hips, and so on and so forth. What we often do, I think, is we recognize the absence of these things, so that when we suddenly realize we're not rooting down or something like that. So now have your right foot forwards again. Let's do pigeon spreads at swings. Sink your weight back, hands on your belly, push forwards, and as you push forwards, your hands are pushed forwards as well. And again, they get drawn back by your elbows and by the attachment to the shoulder, and then reverse as your weight goes back. So all you've got to really do is think in terms of pushing your hands out, and the natural structures of your body will take care of the rest. Again, if it suits you to work with your breathing, just try once or twice as you go forwards, how it feels to take a deep breath in. One more time. And then just sit back, rest on your back foot and let your hands drop down to your sides. And now fisherman cast a net. Again, drawing your arms through as though you're in water. And as you settle into your foot, that's when your hands will swing past your hips and swing out just a little bit. But up until then, they've been behind your body, because if you're in water, the resistance of the water would prevent wouldn't prevent them, but it would make it more difficult for your hands to swing through. And just take the opportunity to feel, once again, in particular, ribs, chest, upper back and shoulder blades, any sort of movement changes there. One more time. Sit back, bring your hands in front of your hips and drop the heel of your palm down. And then once again, as you go forward, your hands are pushed forwards and they naturally swing up and then back. So don't try and lift your hands, just move them forwards and feel how they just swing up nice and easy. Pushing away, again, show you the palms of my hands. Say, I'm pushing against the water, or sometimes pushing the boat. So the fingers are spread out. Imagine the pressure of the water against the palms of your hands, just like earlier when we were swaying in the river. Now this time, coming back, keeping that feeling in the palms of your hands. Turn, raise your hands to just about shoulder height, go forwards, and again, bring your hands down so they're just going to brush against your hips. Turn a little bit to draw your hands up, then move away slightly from the body and back. That figure of 8 on its side once again. Notice how your hands stay together, though they're just lightly tied together. And again, if you watch the hands go out from your body, and then they come back in close, and then they go out, and they come back in close. Go back, raise your front toes. As you go forwards, bring your back heel up. And then, once again, just coming back and stepping in. So now as you raise your arms, step forwards. Plant the foot down, move the weight. Now as you turn and you raise your arms again, they move away from the body and then the foot steps back. Good, and shake out. Okay, have your left foot forwards and start again with pigeon spreads its wings, pushing forwards, feeling just the natural opening, rising of your hands. So you don't, it's not that you're not making, your body's not making an effort to do that, of course it is, but you're not thinking, well, I've got to lift my hands. You're just taking the correct posture, the correct shape, and feeling how your body begins to move in to the exercise, to flow into the exercise. It also helps if you've got an idea of the exercise, because then not only is there the shape that is to an extent dictated by whatever postures you're in, but also there's a shape in your mind that your body can begin to flow into. One more time. And then you change where the arms are. And the exercise changes, but the movement in your feet is the same. Now with your arms just hanging, just natural for them to swing forwards and backwards with the movement of your body. So we can begin to, again, feel the connections into our shoulders, our ribs, muscles of our upper back. And not just the muscles and the soft tissue of the body, but the movement itself, the flow of the energy, the pattern of the energy from your foot right into your fingertips. Then once again, we just make a little change. We come back, we bring our hands in, rest them in front of the hips, have this bend in the elbow. And now as the hands go forwards, they naturally curve up. It's very common to find ourselves getting to here and kind of going, oh, I've got to do this, lift the hands. But that shouldn't be necessary. This movement on the part of the arm, it would be almost impossible to do anything else with the arm in this shape and without doing, without turning or something like that. And come back, notice that the hands are quite close to each other, and you turn and sweep down across your hip. And forwards and down. Extending, expanding, contracting. Expanding and contracting. If you raise your toes, you'll find that there's a connection between this turning and your toes coming up. You can probably turn a little bit more easier with toes and heel coming up, because that allows your hips to come around. It frees the hips up a bit. When your foot is fixed to the ground, that places a restriction on our hips. And then once again, you can bring the foot in and step. You can put the foot down here, that's fine. Or you can take the coordination between your hands and your feet a little bit further if you feel steady enough. You don't have to do this. There's still elements of it here. Notice the foot starts to come up. You could perhaps take the foot up a little bit further if you feel steady enough. It doesn't really matter which way you do it. You should feel comfortable doing it. The important thing is to feel this connection between the movement in your arms and your hands and the movement of your feet, so that it doesn't feel like you're having to coordinate anything. I've got to do this with my arms and something different with my hands, but rather it's your whole body and mind engaged in the movement. And then this time, step forwards and push down, and as you bring your back foot up, step forwards again. Now, I'm going to go back, so bring back, and then again, hands and feet together. Feeling my way back, trying to maintain the correct stance. One more time. And then bring your feet parallel. Okay, when we do the tap in, there's obviously a physical response that can help to wake you up a bit. It can help to loosen your muscles and so on and so forth. And then at the same time, it also draws your attention to that part of the body that's being tapped. So underlying it, there is this idea of the body scan as well. So rubbing your hands together and then tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. The muscle vibrating slightly. So Your palm of your hand, your wrists are soft, but still quite a strong movement. The other side. Then onto your back. Around your hips. Legs. Nice and light on your belly. The upper part of your chest. So coming back to both there, Wu Chi stance, parallel stance, standing. And notice how, again, that awareness that we generate of our body does have this very calming, quietening effect on the mind. And that quieter mind can sort of observe more, investigate more of what's going on in your body. So the physical and the mental, if you like, think of it like that, very much work together. One being enhanced by the other, and then once again being enhanced itself. Embrace tiger, return to mountain, sinking down, pushing up, feeling the effect of your arms going out as they push against gravity, and then eventually beginning to yield in your shoulders and your hips and your back, drawing your hands in, and eventually just being drawn back to the root, to the center, to the mountain. Just recognize this cycle of movement, expanding out, drawing back. There's something that happens physically, but also, again, what happened to our attention. It's quite natural for that to happen. We call it being distracted, but it's not really a distraction. It's just, unless we actually let it distract us, we hear a noise and we go, oh, wonder what that was, and we go and have a look, and then we forget what we were doing. You don't want to do that, but it doesn't mean that you can't recognize the noise. Oh, there's a noise, and then bring your attention back. One more time. And rest. Give your legs a shake. Lovely. That was great. Thank you very much, both of you. And anybody watching on YouTube, who happens to be there.